Rhys Hoskins has been on fire. Nick Williams has been flying under the radar. Will J.P. Crawford be playing third base when he comes up to the major leagues? We'll get to all of that and more with Kevin Cooney, covers the Phillies for the Bucks County Courier Times. Joining us now on the show. Kevin, how you doing today?
Hey, guys. How are you?
Good. So, obviously, we got to start with Rhys Hoskins. I mean, when I see this guy up there, I almost reminds me of Roy Hobbs from The Natural. It looks like Rhys Hoskins was just born to play baseball, and you see him go up there with the same consistency, the same approach every at-bat. It's very, very impressive, and I want to know, what is your immediate reaction been, Kevin, when you've seen him play?
Well, you hear so much about what he did in the minors, and one of the things about being a beat writer necessarily is that you don't see so much of the minor league guys unless you get them at spring training. And, you hear all the stories and you go, well, all right, when he gets up here, he's going to have to make an adjustment. Maybe this first half of his, this half season or these 2 months that he's going to be up here, maybe that gets the adjustment out and ready for 2018. Well, he's made every other pitcher now start to try to find a way to make an adjustment to him. It's been remarkable. He was 0 for 12 to start the year, and ever since then, just absolutely on fire. And he's hitting pitches, guys. One, he's not going out of the zone. He's staying within himself. This is not free swinging, just swing from the heels. And, if I make contact, it's going to go over the wall. If I don't, it's going to be a strikeout. I mean, everything for him has been, solid contact within the strike zone. Even the pitch on Saturday night where he went down and got an off-speed pitch that was in the zone but at the bottom of the zone and basically golfed it out was just a pure example of his contact and his power. And to me, I think this is where, you wonder at times, all right, these guys, it was funny seeing a stat yesterday that Elias provided that, he shortest time to 11 home runs in a career, and he beat Shane Spencer and Gary Sanchez out. All right, Shane Spencer is the ultimate flash in the pan. I don't think Rhys Hoskins is a flash in the pan. I think that there's enough solid tools here to think that he can be this kind of player. Maybe not as hot as this, but this kind of player going forward.
You say he's the same kind of player going forward. I remember Shane Spencer with the Yankees. That was definitely an interesting situation. People were acting like he was the second coming. But back to Hoskins, you see where they also put him in the lineup, Kevin. They immediately put him in the middle of that lineup, and he seemed to embrace it after having a few games to start where he was a little, kind of figuring his way, finding his way. What does it say about a young kid that they put that kind of pressure and that kind of expectation on him right off the bat, and he's been able to embrace it?
Well, it's pretty clear that they were looking for somebody in the middle of the lineup they felt, can be there consistently, to kind of be the anchor. They've been trying all year. They moved Tommy Joseph there. They had Franco there for a long time, and none of that worked. I think now this is pretty clear that when Hoskins came up here, Pete Mackanin saw somebody that embraced that role and felt completely comfortable after one night in the 7-hole to put him right into the 4 spot, and that's kind of has had him sit there the entire time. And when you throw Nick Williams in the 3 spot in front of him, now you got a solid 3-4. And when Odubel Herrera comes back, presumably in the next week or so, you may be able to put Herrera 5, and that gives you a different look. And suddenly this Phillies lineup looks a whole lot different than it did a month ago, and a whole lot better. Yeah, I mean, you still got the third base issue. You're going to have to figure out what to do with the middle infielders. You're probably going to have to figure out where to move Tommy Joseph in the offseason. But at least you have pieces now that you could start projecting forward. I mean, you got Crawford, you got Kingery waiting in the minors. You have Hoskins will be your first baseman. You got to figure out third base. You got to figure out probably how your outfielders are going to stack up with Herrera and Altair and Williams and who plays what and everything. But they now, at least in my mind, can go into opening day and feel pretty comfortable with the lineup they
Kevin Deshawn, with opening day, With the roster set to expand on Friday, what guys do you expect to come up, and can any of them have that type of Rhys Hoskins splash that Hoskins has enjoyed the last couple weeks?
Well, I think the obvious one that everybody's going to focus on is J.P. Crawford. There's a reason why they've been working him out at third base. They want to get him up here, get him a look, and if you put him at third, it may allow you to get him a few more at-bats. They want to keep Freddy Galvis playing shortstop every day, rather, because Galvis has played every day, and it's been a goal of his to play all 162. And to be honest, he's earned the right at this point to play 162. Beyond that, probably a few more pitchers. That's pretty obvious. Do I expect any of them to have a Hoskins impact? I don't think anybody in baseball history has had the impact that Rhys Hoskins has had in his first 3 weeks on changing a little bit of a franchise. So, no. Are you going to have that lightning bolt in the middle of your lineup? No, but I think you're going to at least see. Now, Crawford they're going to bring up because of the fact that he has to go in the 40-man and has to be protected next year. So there's no reason not to call him up for next season, to bring him up and take a look, because you have to put him in protection for Rule 5. You will probably not see Scott Kingery for the exact same reason. That Scott Kingery is in one of those situations where if he's called up, then that means the Phillies are going to have to protect a different type of player here going forward into the Rule 5 draft. And to be honest, that's just not something they're interested in. They get a free roster spot if they don't bring Kingery up at this point.
Going into this offseason, what areas do the Phillies really need to address? I mean, obviously, they've got the young guys to fill the lineup, but pitching still seems to be a glaring hole, especially in the bullpen. Do the Phillies need to have, dare I say, a Sixers-type offseason where there's excitement going into next year with the ballpark numbers continuing to dwindle down?
I would say right now it's starting pitching 1, 2, 3, and 4 that they have to look at. Because of the fact that they're starting pitching right now. They banked a lot of guys here and thought, well, we'll put these arms in there and see who emerges. And aside from Aaron Nola, and I think Jared Eichhoff will be okay. I think this was just a bad year for him. Aside from that, there is nobody else in this starting rotation right now they can count on. Nick Pivetta is inconsistent. Vince Velasquez, obviously the injury issue again, the end of his season. Ben Lively maybe a fifth starter. The same thing with Mark Leiter. They need somebody who's going to be towards the top of the rotation. That being said, the three main starting pitching arms that are going to be out there, at least in the free agent market, are Yu Darvish, Johnny Cueto, and I'm blanking on one. Jake Arrieta that I wrote about the other day, and there's no way they're going to be in play for any of them. They're going to have to overpay for all of them. They all have some injury issues. There's no guarantee that Cueto's even going to opt out of his contract with the Giants. I would, and if I'm the Phillies, I'd stay as far away from all three of them as possible. So it's going to be up to Matt Klentak to be creative here. And by creative, you're talking about dealing some of your prospects and getting some pitchers and trades. And I think that's something that has to be looked at here in this winter. That's going to be the main goal. You mentioned the bullpen. They're going to probably have to rebuild a little bit of the bullpen. Maybe you look at a closer type if you feel like you're going to take a serious move forward next year. But to be honest, I think starting pitching has to be the top priorities by a long shot.
We're talking with Kevin Cooney, covers the Phillies for the Bucks County Courier-Times here on the Sports Bash 97.3 ESPN. Kevin, you mentioned what they have to be creative. You mentioned Tommy Joseph earlier. If J.P. Crawford's going to go to third base, there's Maikel Franco, two guys who really haven't been all the fans in the Phillies organization may have hoped they can be. Do you think there's a way the Phillies can maybe package those two with maybe another prospect or two to get a pitcher?
Honestly, I think if you're going to look at a guy who's going to maybe bring you a pitcher, I think it's going to be Cesar Hernandez. I mean, Cesar Hernandez, offensively, is one of the better second basemen in Major League Baseball. He also has 3 years of control. Now, you know, you have Kingery coming up, so you want to open that up. And I think that if you look at it, Hernandez is the one guy here who I think is going to pique interest of scouts. Well, you know, take a look at Tommy Joseph, okay? Tommy Joseph, both him and Franco, okay, are kind of relics in this baseball era, where if you think about it, they're power-hitting guys, okay, at a time when, you know, those numbers, home runs, RBIs, are not as important anymore in the modern sabermetric methods, if you think about it, okay? You know, guys like, Yonder Alonso, Jay Bruce, those type of guys, they really, in this trade market, got very little attention, okay? Because the other variables, defense, on base percentage, high strikeout rates, really weighed their trade value down. And I think that when you look at the two guys you mentioned, Aaron, Joseph and Franco, those are the major knocks on those guys. So I don't think you're going to get a lot back on that. Whereas Hernandez, high on base guy, has some speed, is getting better defensively by almost all metrics. I think if you look at it, he'll be the guy who gets them more of a shot at a top pitcher. At a pitcher, period.
Looking over as well at the 2018, I mean, obviously, part of when bringing up these young players is 2018. You mentioned Scott Kingery. If there's a situation where it's Crawford at third, Galvis at short, Kingery at second, and Hoskins at first, what kind of production do you think we could expect from that type of infield?
Well, I think you would see high batting average, obviously, and high on-base percentage from Kingery and Crawford. You would be giving up some power at the third base spot, okay? What your hope would be is that your two corner outfielders, assuming it's Altair and Williams to start the season, and Hoskins would be your main three power hitting threats. But, you know, this is, to be honest, guys, I think this is a long shot as the potential opening day lineup. I think it will be a lineup at some point next year, okay? I don't know if J.P. Crawford – I think that the J.P. Crawford experiment right now is to maybe wake up Maikel Franco. I think that part of the J.P. Crawford thing is also to make sure you have some options there. But I think if you look at it realistically, they're not going to trade Franco in this offseason. They look at him as 24 years old, that they still feel like they can salvage something from him. Matt Klentak has talked glowingly of him. Now maybe he's trying to increase trade value. But I think realistically on opening day, it's probably going to be Maikel Franco there at third base. And I would imagine J.P. Crawford may start next year in the minors. He has to be on the 40-man roster, but he could start in the minors and then maybe a June call-up, because then you have to decide what you're going to do with Freddy Galvis, who's going to be a free agent at the end of next year.
And the reason I'm asking, Kevin, is because we've seen the Phillies do this before. You know, years ago, Pat Burrell, he was a third baseman in college. They moved him to left field. And we've seen teams in the past. You know, I harken back to the Cleveland Indians in the 90s, when they had all these young guys like Ramirez and Tomey and all them come up, and they had this older defensive shortstop and Omar Vizquel out there kind of stabilizing the infield. And that's why I kind of look at a guy like Galvis as, you know, maybe he's not the most valuable player on this team offensively, but what he does bring defensively may be just as valuable.
Well, that and leadership, too. That's the other part of it. I mean, you know, Freddie has turned into, you know, the leader of this clubhouse. I think if you look at the manager and you look at the coaches and you talk to them, they love Freddy Galvis, and they wonder why the hell everybody's kind of in this hurry to get Freddy Galvis out of here. And that's a fair point. And there's some scouts who believe that the Phillies have to proceed with caution here because of the fact that Crawford, for basically a season and a half at AAA, really didn't look like he got it going. He did now in the last 6-8 weeks, but ever since really he got doubted by that Baseball America article. I don't know. I think that there could be room for Freddy Galvis here as a utility guy, even if you bring Crawford up. I think that you could get him enough ABs in different spots, second, third, kind of 3 or 4 days a week where he plays. Maybe you try him in an outfield spot as a reserve guy, and that way you could keep his leadership around, and you could keep him, his glove around, because his glove, translates to a lot of places. But the question is, will Freddy Galvis want that? Especially if he's going to be carrying a Gold Glove around at the end of the season.
Kevin, I was one of those guys that, listen, maybe I don't appreciate Freddy Galvis for as much as he does for the club, but I'm looking at a team that's still in a rebuild. You have a asset in Freddy Galvis, who, as you just said, he's one of the best defensive shortstops in Major League Baseball. Is it fair to say not even to look around and see gauge interest of what you could get for a guy like that? Or is it people just want to, give up on Crawford or not give him an opportunity?
Well, I think that people look at Freddy Galvis. Yeah, do I think teams would be interested if you put Freddy Galvis out there? Yeah, but I think there's also he's going to be out of here in a year, or he would be a free agent in a year. Would they want to give up an asset for a guy they can wait 12 months to get? That's where I think the problem is going to be, unless you're in contention next year in July and you need that guy to make a playoff run. So I don't know what kind of a market there would be for Freddy Galvis just because of that point. You're only going to get him for 1 year, and then he's going to be gone.
Kevin, you look at overall at this Phillies team, you see the situation since the All-Star game. They've played a lot better offensively. You've seen Aaron Nola have a good year, especially as come on the last couple months. It seems like whereas last year the second half was a rough stretch for them, this year the second half seems to be the positive, and part of that is because of guys like Nick Williams and Rhys Hoskins. But speak to also the fact that it seems like that All-Star break seemed to do a lot to allow this team to kind of reset itself and reevaluate some things.
Well, the trade deadline changed a little bit around here, too. I mean, you were able to get some people out of here that, quite frankly, didn't fit into whatever they were doing, for the big picture. So, guys, they're still on a 100-loss pace here. So, I mean, it's not a, the turnaround has been more subtle. Record-wise, they're still going to probably finish around the same area. Their pitching's not, I think the pitching probably could lend to them losing 100. But, are they better? Yeah, they're better, and I think it's because the young kids here have added a little energy.
In the bullpen, Hector Neris, he's kind of been relied on as the closer because they seem to have no one else out there. Do you think the Phillies this offseason go out and get a veteran closer, or do you think they kind of do what they did this past year, which is bring in some veteran arms and see what happens?
I think that's probably the mode that you're going to look at. I don't think they're expecting to leap into contention. The idea of getting a closer, for a team that's not in contention, number like when they kept Ken Giles. It's going to be a tough sell for a closer, too. I mean, the numbers are still not going to be there as much as it will be in other spots. So I think they will probably bring a couple guys in, see what happens. And closer is one of the last things you check off the list at the end before you get into contention.
He is Kevin Cooney, Phillies beat writer for the Bucks County Courier-Times. Kevin, we appreciate you coming on the show today, and hopefully the Phillies keep giving us something to watch out there.
Thanks, Kev.
Yep. No problem. Have a good week, guys.